In middle school, it's funny because they're going through puberty, and I just recently went through a second puberty, so I can relate to them in a way that I would say most 27-year-olds can't relate because it has been so long. And I just find myself laughing under my breath a lot. My name is Wes Chernin. I'm from California, and I'm a paraeducator in Portland Public Schools. I was pretty happy at school. Like, I just played basketball and hung out with the guys and the girls, and some days I would be playing basketball, some days I would be playing like pony. I would say that although I was unaware of me being trans as a kid, there was something about always being called a girl or told I was a girl that subconsciously, looking back on now, I think kind of is one of the reasons why I may have been more shy or bashful than many of my peers. Growing up, I didn't know anyone who was trans, or I didn't know the terminology gender nonconforming. I knew a few other tomboys, but that was about it. Nobody at my high school was out as queer. There were no teachers, no faculty, no students. There were some students who got bullied for being perceived as being gay, but nobody was out. There was no gay straight alliance or anything like that I was around. So although I remember feeling very open-minded about it, I never put it on myself as maybe me being part of that community. I just wasn't self-aware. So it wasn't until college, when I moved to a new city and I met different people, that I realized that I was attracted to women. And so initially came out as a gay female. When I graduated college, my first task was to find a job, and I knew I wanted to work with kids, so I applied to the school district near me and got offered a position with special ed as a paraeducator in a preschool autism class. I pretty quickly fell in love with working with those little kids. They were just so adorable, and I loved working on their communication with them a lot and seeing them learn how to communicate what they needed and wanted. And I knew right away that I wanted to pursue the field further. So I wrap up California and I move up to Portland to pursue taking classes for speech-language pathology to continue to be able to work with these kids long-term. And during my studies is when I realized that I was trans and that I'm male and that couldn't be comfortable in my skin the way that I was, and I needed to take measures to transition, to be perceived as a male, and be seen for who I've always felt that I am on the inside. So I started transition almost 3 years ago now, and I've been back in the schools being an educator for almost 2 years. I question how much I want to share that I'm trans and have transitioned with both my colleagues and students, partly because I question how relevant it is, especially in certain situations, partially because there's a fear in me of unacceptance. There's also like a kind of a silly fear of like being bullied as an adult a little bit. But at the same time, although I haven't come out to any students, only some colleagues, something that is appealing to me about sharing my story would be to offer support, to potentially be there for a kid who might be aware that they're transgender or just that they're gender nonconforming and feel confused about it, or just maybe they get bullied or are a misfit or whatever. Another really interesting thing that I've experienced working in schools as male is how lots of other faculty commend me for being so good with kids as a male, and these kids need more males around and more male teachers. And I think it's so interesting because I'm not changing my approach at all. I'm interacting with the kids in the exact same way that I did before, but because I'm perceived as male, it's like they're applauding me almost. I also find it interesting that since I've transitioned and now am in schools as male, I'll have students come up to me and ask me about my wife and my kids, just assuming that I'm married to a woman and have kids, that that's the only option. If I tell them that I don't have a wife or don't have kids, they can't really comprehend it sometimes, which just shows me that queer identities are not being talked about enough in schools. I think the way we're going to change that is by talking about it, acknowledging it, not making it taboo, just finding ways to normalize people's stories. And I know that in the school I'm in now, there's one teacher who has a safe zone sign outside of his room that is an LGBTQ safe zone. I'm an ally. Just, you don't even have to verbalize it, but just having that sign there, if somebody is struggling with it, they know that that might be a trusted adult they can go to. Just normalize people in our schools. I think it will bleed out into society.